Hey guys, before we jump into today's spoiler-free review, just keep in mind that this video is made up of opinions. Do not take these opinions personally. These are my own personal takes on the game, and since this is a spoiler-free review, I'm going to be diving into things in a way that will not spoil the game for those who have not played it yet. So enjoy, and I will see you guys in the video. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's so many, oh my gosh, there's so many ways I could say that title. Final Fantasy VII Reunion Crisis Core. It's a long title. It's a mouthful. But yes, we're going to be going in with the spoiler-free review today, and then in a couple of days you guys are going to be getting the spoiler-heavy review. I feel like there's a better way to phrase it instead of spoiler-heavy. The mega spoiler. The mega spoiler 5000. The mega spoils a lot. Spoiled milk. The heavy duty, everyone's gonna get pissed off at me review for spoiling something they should have known I was gonna spoil. Just keep in mind for the spoiler free reviews, there's going to be minimal or no game footage, because when I talk about no spoilers, I mean no spoilers. I loved this game. At first, it was a little bit slow for my liking. Crisis Core really dove into what Final Fantasy is and what it truly is to be a fan of Final Fantasy, because I feel like this game as a whole represents more of the player base, and I'll explain why. I feel like when you play as Zack, you are playing as a Final Fantasy fan who wants to see different characters do well, is giddy about being a soldier. I feel like all of the things that Zack represents is what Final Fantasy fans are. Yeah, try saying Final Fantasy fans 5 times fast. Jeez. Now to go into the controls, because I feel like that is by far the most important part of today's review. It's really weird because the controls differ from anything I've seen with my Final Fantasy experience so far. I've only played Final Fantasy 15, 7, and now Crisis Core. So since I never played the PSP version, I wasn't aware until recently of how drastic of a change the controls and everything has really had. If I thought Final Fantasy VII was a game changer, oh my god, this one really blew me out of the water entirely. The graphics, the characters, the acting. The acting is a little bit cheesy, I'm gonna be real. The movement in comparison to the original, everything is so different yet similar, if that makes sense. The same bones are being used structurally for the game, yes, because I think there is still, if I remember in doing some of my research, I found out that some of the same cutscenes were even used from the original PSP version, like some of the same movements, but correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. There are so many quality of life improvements that they made to the movements of the characters, to the way the controls are even done, and it's really interesting the way that different remakes and different remasters, it kind of teeters on that line of, well, you can't tell if this is going to be a remaster or a remake, because there's still so much of the old game, the old soul of what was the game on the PSP left in this remake. Now, as far as controls go, the way the character's movement goes is a bit stiff. Like with Zack, he was doing kind of like all of these big, like grandiose movements, and whenever he would do like these weird squatting motions, I don't know what he was doing. I think he was doing like leg push-ups or something, when he would just like move into place. It's so strange. Oh my gosh. You can tell the game's age for sure when looking at some of these cutscenes, because there are so many different pauses and the fade to blacks whenever you're going in. It's kind of like I was playing Forspoken. Not in a bad way. So when I was looking at this game, I was like, wait a second, why is this making me think of Forspoken? Oh yeah, the fades, the cuts, the way that the pacing is done. It is that of an older game. I mean, Zack's movements in general, they were kind of looking a little bit robotronic.
Looking little robotronic.
This game came out in 2007, so it needed a little bit of greasing on the hinges. Now, when I saw Sephiroth, the change, like, oh my goodness, when I looked at pictures of the before and after, it's night and day. Like, Sephiroth is just, oh my god. Zack will always have my heart. Zack is my favorite Final Fantasy character. I will die on this hill. Now, the DMW system was something that was new for me personally. It was kind of like you were going into, what was it, like a slot machine or something, and you had to like get all 3 that were the same. I don't know what it was about that. It just looked so, I don't want to use cheesy, but I'm going to use cheesy for lack of a better term, because it felt like it was a little bit too over the top for me, if that makes sense. If you get certain combos, you get ultimate MP, like no expense MP. You get different AP attributes, I believe, for the attack power. You get different combinations for certain moves that you can do when you are introduced to new characters. You can use their move sets if you get their 3 faces all in a row whenever you get the Final Fantasy slot machine going. The fact that this got a remake that it deserves alongside, Final Fantasy VII Remake, everything just made the Final Fantasy story for me personally make so much more sense. Now, while some of the controls were lacking, the combat became just really repetitive for me after a while. I feel like it was one of those things of where a lot of the combat in Final Fantasy is lacking, but the story is there, and that's what matters for me. If you have an incredible story in the game, I could care less about some of the controls. I take that back. If the controls are buggy and they're completely unusable, then yes, I care. But if it's repetitive controls with an incredible story, then I will suffer through the control work in order to get to every single chapter. I mean, my goodness gracious, I want to see the Final Fantasy movies because it's just the character interaction with one another. It's so cinematic and it's so wonderful to see. And I love how the voice actors, especially, they bring so much of this game to life. And the way that we see the interaction with Zack and Sephiroth before everything just went batshit crazy. after the reunion in what we know of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I really think that just their character integrations, especially Genesis and Angeal, those 2 characters, their interactions are some of the best within the game. There's certain characters that I won't mention for spoilers, obviously, but it's so interesting to see a prequel, and it's so interesting to see how everything started. And one of the things that I will say that is so difficult to do is have a consistently flowing, well-written prequel to a story that people already know. So if you already know the story, and you have to make that prequel amazing, you have to make it good if the main story is already, extremely well written. The story is what made this game. Point blank, point simple. It's what created the immersion for me, at least, with this entire experience of Final Fantasy Crisis Core. When you experience Crisis Core, you're not just experiencing a video game, you're experiencing a legacy. You're experiencing something that has fans emotionally invested. And I feel like when you play through it, you're going to experience, at least I know for me personally, I can't say for everyone, obviously, but you're going to experience an array of emotions that you never knew that you had, okay? I'm just warning you right now, you might want to get your tissues prepped just in case. I know this is going to sound really over dramatic, but this game holds a special place in my heart, and I will be thinking about this probably every single day because that's how special Crisis Core is to me. And it's made me fall in love with Final Fantasy VII when originally I didn't like Final Fantasy VII that much. I didn't think it was that entertaining. I thought the story was kind of mid, but listening to a lot of the dialogue, watching the performance that was carried out in Crisis Core made me fall in love with Final Fantasy VII. And it's amazing how a prequel story can do that for what the main story is. I feel like that's truly amazing writing, and that is so incredible for me. But you guys, that was my spoiler-free review of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, Crisis Reunion, Final Fantasy. That's a really very long title, okay? But you guys, that was my spoiler-free review of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you all like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. I make videos every day here on YouTube. May you find your worth in the waking world, your hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.